The Galactic Council chamber hummed with cold efficiency, its towering walls lined with glowing screens displaying endless streams of alien text. Representatives from dozens of interstellar civilizations sat in their floating seats, their expressions unreadable. In the center of the room, bound in chains, stood Ambassador Elias Carter, humanity's voice in the council, and now, its sacrificial lamb. His suit, once a symbol of diplomatic decorum, was torn and stained. His face bore signs of interrogation, bruises along his jaw, dried blood at his temple. Yet, despite it all, he stood tall. His dark eyes scanned the council members, searching for a shred of reason. Grand Arbiter Zelzar, a towering insectoid with shimmering carapace, tapped his gavel against the levitating tribunal platform. His voice, amplified by unseen technology, rang through the chamber. Ambassador Carter, you stand accused of crimes against the Galactic Council. Earth's forces have expanded beyond their designated sectors. They have defied mandates, refused to submit their technological advancements for review, and, most egregiously, disregarded the authority of this governing body. How do you plead? Elias scoffed, rolling his shoulders as much as his bindings would allow. Plead? You've already decided my fate. This isn't a trial. It's a spectacle. His voice, though hoarse, carried strength. Earth asked for fair trade, equal representation, and the right to defend itself. You denied us at every turn. Now, you frame me as a warmonger because we refuse to kneel. A murmur rippled through the chamber, some species exchanging uncertain glances. Zelzar's mandibles clicked in irritation. You speak of fairness, yet humanity builds war fleets in secret. You develop weapons far beyond what is permitted for a Tier 3 species. Elias let out a short laugh. And yet, the Council's elite fleets, your so-called peacekeepers, hover over our colonies like vultures. Are we not allowed to defend ourselves? Or is it that you fear what humanity is capable of? Silence. A silence heavy with unspoken truths. Zelzar's compound eyes glistened. The Council has deliberated. Earth's defiance cannot go unanswered. He raised a hand, and a massive screen flickered to life behind him, displaying a single sentence in multiple languages. Sentence: death by public hanging. Gasps and murmurs erupted, but none dared to challenge the ruling. Elias clenched his jaw. So this was how it ended, not with war, not with negotiations, but with a quiet execution, swept under the rug of bureaucracy. 2 armored guards seized his arms, dragging him to the center of the chamber where a mechanical noose descended from above. The sight of it sent a chill through the room. Hanging was a relic of a bygone era, a message more than a punishment. The Council wanted Earth to see this. The noose tightened around his neck, the synthetic fibers cold against his skin. Elias lifted his chin, refusing to give them the satisfaction of fear. He inhaled sharply, his final words barely above a whisper. You have no idea what you've just started. Zelzar gave a signal. The floor beneath Elias vanished. The rope snapped taut. The chamber fell into silence. The broadcast was transmitted across neutral sectors, reaching every diplomatic outpost, including Earth's. The moment the feed cut, chaos erupted. On Earth, the United Government's emergency session convened within the hour. The room, a vast underground war bunker, buzzed with barely contained fury. Screens displayed the execution playing on loop. Military leaders and political officials sat around a massive holographic table, their faces grim. President Naomi Voss, her silver-streaked hair pulled back in a tight bun, stood at the head of the table, fists clenched. They murdered our diplomat. A public execution. Her voice was dangerously low. This was not justice. This was a declaration of war. General Marcus Hall, head of Earth's defense forces, leaned forward, his hands flat against the table. Madam President, with all due respect, this was inevitable. The Council never intended to let us rise. They fear us. His gaze swept across the room. They think this will break us. They think we'll bow. A younger officer, Colonel Aaron Vasquez, shook his head. They've underestimated us. Again, Voss exhaled, controlling her anger. "I want options." An intelligence officer spoke up. "We've been preparing contingency plans for hostile council actions. Our Black Ops teams have mapped weaknesses in their supply chains. Our fleets are stronger than they realize." General Hall nodded. "And we've developed weapons that put us on par with Tier 1 species. We never stopped advancing, even when they tried to limit us." Voss turned to her defense minister. "If we go to war, there's no turning back." The older woman, hardened by decades of political maneuvering, met her gaze. "We lost our diplomat today, but if we do nothing, we'll lose our future." A beat of silence. Then Voss straightened, her decision made. "Effective immediately, all human forces are to mobilize. Inform our colonies to prepare for full-scale conflict." She turned to her communications officer. "Send a final transmission to the Galactic Council." The message was short. "You wanted to see what humanity is capable of? Now you will." The order spread like wildfire. Earth's military machine, long kept in the shadows, roared to life. Massive underground bunkers opened, revealing warships that had never been acknowledged in any diplomatic meeting. Factories shifted into wartime production overnight. Fleets stationed near the Sol system received their orders: mobilize, prepare, and strike before the enemy could react. Across human colonies, conscription notices were issued. Veterans re-enlisted without hesitation. Civilian industries pivoted toward the war effort. Scientists who had spent decades developing theoretical weaponry found their research fast-tracked into deployment. Humanity wasn't just responding. It was preparing to unleash the full force of its potential. On Mars, Admiral Kira Solis stood aboard the UNS Retribution, a ship larger than anything the Council had ever seen, its black hull designed to absorb scans, its weaponry generations ahead of what Earth had admitted to having. The fleet surrounding her was equally formidable. Dreadnoughts, carriers, stealth corvettes, all waiting for the order. Her orders were simple: strike first, strike hard, and ensure that by the time the Council realized what was happening, it would be too late. The fleet's first target was Zixer Prime, a vital supply hub for the Council's military. It had been chosen for one reason: it was far enough from their core systems that reinforcements would take time, and its destruction would cripple their logistics. The fleet jumped. Within minutes, alarms blared across Zixer Prime. The planetary defense grid activated, but it was outdated against what humanity had brought to the battlefield. Earth's forces didn't bother with prolonged engagements. They struck like a scalpel, pinpoint accuracy, overwhelming force. Cyber warfare teams disabled planetary defenses before the first kinetic rods rained down. The bombardment was precise. Military installations turned to rubble in seconds. Supply depots erupted in flames. By the time the enemy fleet scrambled to respond, the battle was already over. The UNS Retribution fired a final shot, piercing the last standing orbital station before the fleet disappeared back into slipspace. The first strike had been a success. Back on Earth, the footage was broadcasted across secure military networks. The message was clear: humanity was no longer playing by the Council's rules. The Council's response was immediate. A war summit was called, its members shaken by the sheer scale of the attack. Zelzar, now faced with the consequences of his decision, demanded a counteroffensive. Yet, for the first time, cracks appeared in the Council's unity. Some species hesitated. They had believed humanity would lash out, but not with this level of precision. Not with this level of strategy. Others saw opportunity. If humanity could challenge the Council, what else could they accomplish? Whispers of defection began. But the Council still had overwhelming numbers. Their fleets outnumbered humanity's 10-1. The order was given. A full invasion force was dispatched toward Earth's outermost colonies. Humanity was ready. The colonies weren't left undefended. The Council expected planetary shields, basic orbital defenses. What they found instead were fully armed bastions, bristling with experimental weaponry. Railgun batteries fired with pinpoint accuracy, tearing apart capital ships. Swarms of AI-controlled drones overwhelmed enemy fighters. Human forces fought with brutal efficiency, utilizing ambush tactics perfected in simulations that the Council had never even considered. For every human ship destroyed, 3 enemy vessels fell. But war had its cost. The colony of Eos 7 was lost, its defenses overwhelmed after a brutal 4-day siege. Millions perished before Earth's reinforcements could arrive. The footage of the massacre only hardened humanity's resolve. President Voss addressed the United Earth government and all its people. Her message was broadcasted across every city, every colony, every warship preparing for battle. They thought we would crumble. They thought we would beg. Instead, we rise. For every world they take, we will take 2. For every life they extinguish, we will answer 100-fold. This is no longer a battle for revenge. This is a battle for our future. The war had only just begun, and humanity had no intention of losing. The Council had underestimated humanity. What was supposed to be a swift suppression had turned into a grinding war that threatened to destabilize their entire rule. Every battle fought only cemented Earth's reputation as an unrelenting force, willing to sacrifice everything for victory. Council fleets, once the uncontested enforcers of the galaxy, now found themselves struggling against an enemy that fought with ruthless precision. Humanity did not wage war the way the Council expected. There were no grand declarations, no prolonged engagements where sheer numbers could overwhelm. Instead, there were surgical strikes that dismantled supply lines, ambushes that turned superior fleets into wreckage, and entire stations that went dark before reinforcements could arrive. The Council was bleeding, and they knew it. Their retaliation was brutal. Worlds that harbored human sympathizers were purged, their populations either executed or sent into forced labor. Mercenary forces were hired to do what the Council's own armies could not: break humanity's spirit. But Earth had anticipated this. Counterintelligence divisions worked tirelessly to dismantle infiltration attempts. High-value targets were eliminated before they could sow dissent. Every underhanded move was met with one even more devastating. Then came the breaking point. The Council assembled its largest fleet in recorded history, a force meant to end the war in one decisive strike. Over 500 capital ships, thousands of support vessels, and an army large enough to invade multiple systems at once. Their target, Earth itself. The plan was simple: overwhelm Earth's defenses, bombard its surface into submission, and force unconditional surrender. The fleet moved with confidence, believing that sheer numbers would finally turn the tide. But Earth was not unprepared. Humanity had known this moment would come, and when it did, they ensured it would be the Council's greatest mistake. As the Armada entered the Sol system, they found it eerily quiet. No immediate resistance, no defensive formations rushing to meet them. Just the vastness of space and the looming presence of Earth in the distance. They pressed forward, scanners searching for hidden threats. That was when the trap was sprung. Massive stations, long thought to be civilian hubs, powered up experimental weapons. Stealth fleets emerged from the asteroid belt, launching precise strikes on key command ships. AI-controlled drone swarms filled the battlefield, disrupting formations before human capital ships even entered the fight. What the Council had believed would be a straightforward invasion turned into a slaughter. Earth's forces fought like demons. Every engagement was a lesson in efficiency and brutality. The Council's admirals realized too late that they were not facing an enemy fighting for survival. They were facing an enemy fighting for absolute victory. The battle raged for days, but the outcome was inevitable. The Council's great fleet was shattered, its remnants retreating in disarray. Humanity had not only defended its home but had proven, beyond any doubt, that it was now among the most powerful forces in the galaxy. And Earth was not done. The war was no longer about survival. It was about making sure that no one would ever dare threaten humanity again. The Council was in chaos. Their greatest fleet lay in ruins, their forces scattered, their authority shattered. What had once been an unchallenged rule over the galaxy was now slipping through their grasp. The loss at Sol had sent shockwaves through every member species, and fear gripped those who once believed in the Council's invincibility. Some factions saw the inevitable and withdrew their support, unwilling to risk further losses. Others, more desperate, called for escalation, deploying weapons banned even by their own laws. But it was too late. Humanity had seized control of the war, and they had no intention of letting their enemies recover. Earth's fleets, once focused on defense, now turned to the offensive. System by system, human forces dismantled the Council's infrastructure. Supply routes were severed, shipyards destroyed, entire command centers wiped from existence before they could regroup. The war had shifted from retaliation to eradication. The Council, realizing their impending collapse, sent envoys begging for negotiations. They offered concessions, territories, resources, anything to end the war before humanity reached their core worlds. But Earth had already decided. There would be no peace, no truce, no half measures. They had been shown what the Council's justice looked like when Elias Carter was executed. Now, they would show the galaxy what humanity's justice looked like. The final campaign was swift and merciless. Earth's fleets descended upon the Council's homeworld, bypassing its once impenetrable defenses with technology the Council had dismissed as impossible. The war was no longer a battle. It was a message. The Council chambers, once a place of power, now stood in ruins. Zelzar, the architect of humanity's oppression, was dragged before the United Earth government in chains, just as Elias Carter had once stood before him. There was no trial, no prolonged deliberation. Judgment had already been passed the moment humanity had been forced to take up arms. When the transmission of his execution spread across the galaxy, the last remnants of the Council crumbled. Some species surrendered immediately, others fled into the void, hoping to escape humanity's wrath. But humanity had no interest in ruling an empire. They had no desire to replace the Council with their own version of tyranny. They had proven their point. The war was over. Earth stood victorious, and the galaxy would never dare challenge them again.